Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. This afternoon, we are concentrating on the startup space, and I'm going to allow a couple of seconds for people. There's a large number of you coming on board, so bear with us so that everyone gets a chance to be with us. So as I said, today we're looking at the startup space, and people may think startup space in the year that we've had, is that absolutely mad? But here's the positive. You have had time to look at your product development, you've had time to look at what's going on, and you also will have had time to look at your e-commerce, which, as we all know, we've been shot forward so quickly that we've accelerated in 5 months what probably would have taken 2 or 3 years. So to talk on this topic today, I'm absolutely delighted to have Maeve Ring with us. Maeve is absolutely super in this space, and she will give you a few pointers in the area. And then after that, we have Emily Jean Designs to speak with us of her own personal journey and experience. So with that, Maeve, I'd like to hand over to you, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm just making sure you can see my slides okay. Yes?
Just allow a second or two there. There we go. We're off.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Maeve.
Okie doke. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to speak to you this afternoon. And thanks so much to Emer and the Design and Crafts Council for asking me to speak today, along with the wonderful Emily Jean O'Byrne. As Emer was saying, people might think, gosh, is now a good time to start a new business in the current difficult trading landscape. It is because we've never been as creative, and from the experiences that consumers have gone through in the last 12 months, they're looking for very interesting product, very creative product, Irish product. So it actually might be a good time to take stock and say, look, what is it that I do that I love, that I can make, that I could possibly make a living out of? So I'm going to share some insights for you guys to have a look at and see, what works for each of you. Everyone's experiences are different. Now I'm just wondering why I can't. The joys of technology, guys. I'm just wondering what's going on here. Yes, stage 2. Everyone has different experiences. What will be different for a ceramicist might be different for someone working in interiors, might be different to somebody working in the fashion or the textile sector. But in the main, you have very similar commonalities. So the end game is, as I said, to make an income from something that you enjoy doing, that you love doing. So in doing so, you tend to look at your skill set and your creativity and say, gosh, how can I make product, design a design something that someone will want to wear, something that someone will want to use in their home or give as a gift. So there's 5 kind of topics that I'll fly through before Emily Jean, comes in and gives her take on some of the slides I'm going to put forward. The first one is your craft, which is the end product you want to sell. Digital, start and stay digital. That's what everyone is about at the moment. We've been forced into it. It's challenging and it's cumbersome, but that's the way it's going. Communicate visually with your prices and your story. And that's another word for branding. Don't just make a product. You're going to have a lovely story around it. Make a plan. It's just because the environment is so uncertain. Give yourselves kind of tasks and activities. And then I'm just going to run through some of the consumers' experiences last year. I have a list of slides all beginning with S so that you can have a look at. And as I said, Emily Jean will come in and give her story and maybe comment on some of the things that I have said. So thanks again, Emily, for giving up of your time. So we'll start with your craft product. This is what it's all about. Be brilliant at what you do and make product that will sell. Don't just make product that you love, make product that you know you can sell to other people. it is a balance because all of us that work in the gift, craft, design, artistic sector, we're all artists at heart, and it's something we feel really compromised by making something in a different fabric or using a different material or changing ingredients. But I suppose what I'm saying to you is that you have to define and refine your skill set so that you can make a product that's going to sell to the consumer. And sometimes the end products we make and we love, they don't sell. It can be soul destroying. Some products we can barely tolerate end up being your bestseller. But that's business. The end game is hopefully to make an income and sales from what you do. And it is hard because I said, everything you make you love, and also constantly learn and upskill. Now that will come naturally to all of us. Perhaps we're experimenting too much, but if you see an opportunity to learn more about textile, printing, ceramics, sign up for that because we're constantly learning. There's constantly new techniques and experiences happening out there. Um, and as I said, like this is where it starts for the public, the consumer, and the maker. You make a product. I know what it is, and I know what to do with it. Um, and always look at it in various ways. You might be an artist, and you might think, okay, I paint on canvas. But when you're in the gift craft artistic sector and you want to make a business, you might say, okay, can I transfer that artwork onto silk, onto linen, or what would the end product be? So again, just spend time knowing what your product is, what your craft product is. And then when you know what it is, or it's constant, you'll be investigating, you'll be testing. Um, if you want to sell it, if you want to put it in front of the consumer, photograph it, get a good image of it, because in these times where we're not getting to shops, where we're not getting to fairs or shows for a while, images and visuals of what you make is really how you communicate with your audience, and that's images on Etsy, on Facebook, on your own website, on social media. So when you make beautiful work, make sure you spend the time to take beautiful photography. Now I know that might feel easier said than done, but if you have to upskill and train yourself a bit in photography, do that, because that's the way you're going to reach the consumer with your craft. And again, just lovely photographs here of, ceramic, that lovely aqua blue. That turban there is actually Emily Jean's. I'm just, sucking up to her there. But, on the website, you can zone in and see how beautiful that purple tweed is. And so if you're a consumer wondering, what to wear or how to accessorize or whatever, that photograph really lands it and brings it home. It is your shop window. And just some other examples of photographs, this beautiful bag, Solia, um, Diane, she's actually at showcase, today, but like the detail that I can see on the wicker and the leather, it just helps me understand the love that went into that beautiful gift craft design product. And likewise, badly made books. I mean, one of the labels there in his photograph is 82.51% rubbish because it's from a recycled paper. So, these are the way your craft product, when it's photographed, begins to tell a story, begins to bring in the consumer. And again, just other craft, gift craft design is, take photographs of your product in situ or you in the making process, because all of a sudden what I'm trying to explain is that the brand starts to get life when I see good images and good photography. I begin to see a story behind what you're talking about. So that's the first key thing, is know your product, love your product, be really good at it, and know how, know what the consumer wants from it, how they could wear it, how they could use it.
Maeve, prior to you moving on to digital, I know this sounds really rude. Can you please shout into your mic?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm still getting people can't hear you properly. So thank you.
Okay, thanks for flagging that. So the next thing I would say, after perfecting your product, start and stay with digital. When you are in the gift craft design sector, this is where everyone is going. regardless of where you want to sell. If you want to sell in, high-end galleries, if you want to sell only direct, if you want to sell in retail outlets, you still have to work with digital. You still have to work with taking beautiful photographs, having 5 or 6 sentences that explains your inspiration, your creativity, what is it that you do. So, plan to have great photography, great images, and plan also to have great content. And what content is sentences, text, words that describe your inspiration, your motivation, why you decided to create this particular product design or skill set. And that gives a meaningfulness and an authenticity to the consumer. But, never before, especially in these trading environment, has digital be so important. And it's not just website, it's not just social media, it's Etsy, it's photography, it's traditional press as well. To attract, the print media, you have to send them a beautiful photograph and some creative text around what it is you do and why. So digital is a key gift. And I'm just flagging examples here of this lady. She started out as an artist. She transferred her art into silk scarves. And this photography just shows how the same scarf can be worn in 3 different ways. Again, it just tells me what to do with the product, and it gives me the story behind the product, and it gives prices and stocks where I can sell it. Um, so as I said, this is probably the key learning in 2020 for consumer goods, especially for the gift craft and design sector. The consumer really needs to see what you make, create, design. They need to understand why the product is different. You need to tell them, that you're Irish, that you're local. You need to, it's not that if you tell it, it becomes true, but you need to describe yourselves as, desirable, sustainable, relevant, stylish, beautiful, and all of that can be conveyed. You are the voice. You can say that through social media or through, your sales platform. So as I said, you give beautiful images and then you give a text, and that is the text is your content. It's the story about what you make, why you make it, and why this product or this interior or this form is going to look beautiful in your home, beautiful if you wear it, or it'll say something about you if you give it as a gift. And I just kind of respectfully say, if you're not in digital, the questions that you will get via email or via phone call will be like, can you please show me what you do? What is the price? Where do I buy from you? How do I pay? And in reality, many consumers will not ask you that. They'll just, it's too much, it's too tiresome for them. So you have to make it easy for them. And even, on digital, even if you're not selling from your platforms or your social media, to state I'm available in XY shops. So that's the whole, that's the whole communication. So this, the second feature, the step there is really is be ready for digital. Start and stay there, regardless of where you're going to end up. So if the first kind of tip was perfect your product, make it beautiful, make it razzle dazzle, the second was digitalization. The third thing that I would sort of encourage you all to think about at the beginning and consistently think about is you're not just making a craft, design, artistic product. You're creating a brand. So every consumer product has 3 components. It has the kind of physical, visual, functional. It's a vase, it holds water, flowers can stand in it. And that's, if I don't see it in a shop or a fair, I see it, on social media in digital. But that's only one part of your product. The next 1/3 of your product is the emotional product. It's like, why do I find this vase interesting? It is because it's inspired by Irish mythology or Art Deco. It is because it is handmade with love in Westmeath. It is because it was inspired by my famous, my favorite book. So that's the emotional product, and that's your storytelling and your content. So that's really important to communicate at the very outset. If you use a particular blue glaze in ceramics, just tell us why, what inspired you, what for. So that's the emotional side of your product, the storytelling. And craftspeople often think, oh gosh, I'm not really good at that. In reality, you really are very good at it. It's just you might not have been pushed to put it in writing just yet. And the third component to creative consumer products is the price. I like to see the price everywhere because the consumer can only decide whether they can buy from you if they see the price, like what is the cost, the monetary value. And when you give inspirational stories and when you explain it's sustainable, handmade, beautiful, stylish, fashionable, sometimes the consumer is even more prepared to accept a premium price. So when you're developing your creative business, know that you're not just developing one product, one functional physical thing. You're developing a brand, and a brand has three components: physical product, the emotional, motivational, inspirational product, and the price. And the price isn't just the euro price, it's the value that the consumer places on what it is that you're making. And then you have to communicate that. And I've just picked a really simple example of Foxford. I immediately see beautiful scarves. I immediately see the price at 23 euros. And if I click in, I see at the side there the product description. It's a contemporary design, a blend of, pink, fuchsia pink, rich purple, moss green. So it's just putting all three components in together immediately. And I just picked another sort of a small local Cork company here, Soma Studio. Again, I see the product, I visually see that it's candle, I know what to do with it. I see the price straight away. And on our website, then if you click on it, you'll get, the story behind the Rubird and Pony fragrance. So that's the third thing, is always to communicate as a brand. The fourth thing, and people will start throwing their eyes to heaven when I say this, is create a plan. Now, I'm not suggesting you write a business plan, even though, yeah, a business plan is great. But as we approach the next 2, 3, 4 months, if you set yourself tasks and ideas, if you have an idea for a collection, develop the collection. Say I'm going to have 3 or 5 products to put into that collection. Yes, there's loads to do, but keep it simple, keep it achievable as well. Don't put it out there as something, long term and difficult and challenging. So give yourself a couple of steps or a couple of actions that you can put in place to grow your business. And again, even those of you who are signed up here now with the webinar, you're doing everything right, because there is lots of supports, even though I know you might sometimes feel that you're on your own. But the whole webinar series is great with the Design and Crafts Council. Look also to your local enterprise offices and their online training. If you haven't done a Start Your Own Business course and you think it might be of benefit to you, they're only 6 weeks, 2-3 hours a week, but they will give you the business language and the economic language. And you'd also become exposed to the other supports outside of the Design and Crafts Council supports. So what I would just say is that, even if it is to upskill so that I know how to use Instagram, even if it is to research the possibility of targeting shops, give yourself a set of actions because of the uncertainty, not despite of the uncertainty, because of the uncertainty. Think and plan, because hopefully, we're all going to be back in action, hopefully very soon, and it'll be so busy and tumbling. So now's the time to maybe plan ahead and see what you could achieve next year. I mean, if you even said to yourself now, gosh, would I be ready for Showcase in 2022? And there are things that you could maybe research and plan for now. And, typical plans for startups is, again, think digital. How do I upskill and empower myself in digital? Photographs are really important. What might I have to do? If I can't do it, can you say to yourself, could I look for a mentor? Could I look for a strategic alliance with a creative friend of mine who is good at photography? Start thinking now about your creative content, you know, the words and the descriptions that support your product. Start looking at, you know, competitor pricing, like what is the typical price for a silver necklace? What is the typical price for an Irish wall hanging that is mounted? You know, research now social media. Also, not to be underestimated is traditional media. There's, you know, that still is a huge influence. So if you started saying to yourself, gosh, I'm going to spend time in the next week or two writing a press release about me and seeing who might pick it up, don't underestimate local press. They're really generous to local makers. You know, they really love to see local businesses working together. Local radio as well as a huge has had a huge listenership in the last year, you know, with everything we've gone through. And also research collectives. With the Design and Crafts Council, there's a whole group called GANs, groups, associations, networks, and societies. So just see who's in your region. And if there's not formal groups, in many cases there's informal groups that organize events or pop-up shops, and, you know, share and learn from each other, because there really is power in number. Um, so think about that plan. Now, I can almost hear everyone turning off when I say Brexit. Who me? Um, Brexit may affect you, and now's a good time just to know a little bit about it. And certainly lots of design and crafts people and indeed retailers I was working with in the last couple of weeks. The question that keeps coming up is like, Maeve, you know, what's a commodity code or what's a harmonization code? And what that basically is the soap you make or the necklace you make or the knitwear that you create has 7 to 9 numbers, which are digits that denote the tariff or the tax that your gift craft design product would be charged if it entered the UK or the USA. So it's just only something small, but you can get that from revenue. So again, if you think the UK and the USA are going to be your market, or indeed you're buying supplies in from the UK or the USA, now's a good time to just familiarize yourself on your tariff codes. And again, I know the Design and Crafts Council are going to do a couple of workshops on the but again, it's lots of people think, oh, it doesn't apply to me. It might. And again, you can check revenue, and they give a whole feed on tariff codes. So the final point then I would kind of put out there is assess the marketplace from the consumer's perspective, not yours. It's all about the consumer. In Creative Startup, sales come from the consumer. So it's the consumer you have to talk to, it's the consumer you have to impress. And it's their perspective we have to work with, not ours. And how you research the consumer is talk to other startups, talk to other people in the gift, craft, and design sector, and know that the consumer is very influenced by press, social media, and the information that you give them. Like, you can influence them when you give them information. Now, the consumer went through, like all of us went through, loads of changes in 2020. It was, you know, everything changed in 2020. So like the key trends and the key things that retailers, that, you know, communicators, that broadcasters are all looking at is that it's all online and it all needs to be digital. So do we as a sector. It needs to be visually beautiful, and therefore the importance of photography, the importance of content as well. Consumers this year have really embraced Irish, local, and support for SMEs and micro enterprises. I was talking to somebody who works with Food Academy and SuperValue, and SuperValue's Food Academy, which are all the small artisan food producers, had their best year ever in 2020. And again, what I would often say to people in the gift, craft, design sector is that, you know, your cousin are the artisan food producers, and, you know, their storytelling and their branding can sometimes be very similar to ours. and we very much have the same consumer type sets. So Irish local and support for local was a key thing and terribly important to the consumer in 2020 and will continue this year as well. Another key thing is, and it was happening before COVID, is sustainability, free from, good to work, eco-friendly, mother nature, low carbon footprint, the ingredients that you use. So again, that's a key thing. If you can fit into that, and not only if you can fit into it, it's just the right thing to do. And again, weaving into both of that is storytelling, content of your social media, and it's a tell, not just a sell. Like, you're not flogging product, you're telling people about your creative product. And Brexit, but again, we just touched on Brexit, but sometimes people are saying, gosh, I had no idea we were buying X, Y, and Z product type from the UK. Surely there's someone in Ireland doing that. So that's why it feels back to it, the importance of buying local. So I'll fly through these. These are kind of slides and topics that I spoke about with Emily Jean, and just from my experiences in retail, from my experiences in business, some of the things that are jumping out and that might be relevant for you guys going forward. And the first one is small is good. And I'm not just saying that because I'm 5 foot nothing, but a small business is an attractive business. While it's very challenging to be the head of everything, you can also change and move quite fast. And small means that you have control of what you're doing. And also in society and in press and in media and in digital content, small was a key search term for all of 2020 in a very positive and hopeful way. All the campaigns were about supporting small businesses, buying from small retailers, champion green, made local, buy local. So small is just a positive word. We don't often hear in media the big conglomerate being spoken about as terribly positive, but small businesses are encouraged and are very, they're celebrated really now in Irish media and with Irish consumers. The next S is storytelling. Again, that goes back to your branding. And most people in gift craft design, you have brilliant stories, you have lovely inspirational ideas. It's your creative content. And okay, many of us need help describing what our story is and what our creative content is, but it's you. It's your story, it's your experience, and nobody can make that up or copy you. So relevant, meaningful stories are something the consumer sought for, kind of back to what I said about, artisan food consumers. And consumers were encouraged to find these products. So you're in that space, so maximize that as much as you can. So it's smart to be a storyteller for a number of reasons, as far as press, PR, publicity. And I would just kind of say, think nationwide. If you look at nationwide, the core of what they're doing, and I'm sure Owen Ryan will correct me, but it's all sort of hopeful storytelling, uplifting, overcoming small businesses. So, they're all things that we naturally have. And that's the way the consumer can perceive you. And your storytelling is really good to kind of attract PR, to enter any awards, the Irish Made Awards, or any of the local business awards that chambers and networks run. So, storytelling is terribly important. The next thing is sustainability. It's just huge, and it's larger than a trend. It's a societal movement, and consumers don't like buying products that might contribute to the unhealthy environment. They love buying free from products. And again, if I kind of go back to our cousins in the food sector, Board B of Food Trends would have said provenance and authenticity. It ties in with what of the consumer's desire to live a more sustainable lifestyle. So again, textiles coming from Ireland, or buying from a local designer as opposed to an international designer, buying skincare products that has less, carbon miles. All of this are really good. So if you fit into this, talk about it and use it in your digital storytelling, use it in your social media. And you can even use it in your packaging and labeling. You can say, look, I don't use a particular type of packaging because of X, Y, and Z. And again, back to the retail marketplace and the consumers sought this. It wasn't pushed on them, it was pulled through the system. The consumers sought this, and they 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 want to support businesses that feel that feel the same way as them. The next S is show what you make. Again, it feeds into digital, feeds into social media, films, little live Instagrams, showing people your workshop or your environment or what inspires you. And yes, it's fabulous if you have a budget to do a big film on that. But what you'd often see now are really smart little phone recordings of, this is my workshop, this is what I'm doing. And again, if you're the person doing it, it's very authentic and it's very real, and it communicates again that you care and that you value what it is what you're doing. And again, if we're not going to as many shops or as fairs or shows, you creating a little film or you creating a demonstration, it gives you visibility, credibility, and authenticity that other bigger manufacturers and makers might not be able to give. And then social media, look, that's been around for a while, but one thing that kind of came up a lot in 2020 is that don't do social media for the sake of social media. If you're going to do it, have a conversation. It's a two-way thing. You don't have to post every day, but maybe the day you do post, it's a conversation. It's a tell, not always a sell. And again, photographs and images are really important. Lots of people would encourage you to plan for social media. Back to the plan I was talking about. And again, don't fall into, oh, I'm going to talk about Mother's Day, or oh, I'm going to talk about St. Patrick's Day, because with your brand or your design signature, St. Bridget might be more important than St. Patrick, or Heritage Week might be more important than Mother's Day. So you could plan out the things that are important to you, Rosa Parks' birthday or Earth Day, whatever it might be. So they might be the days you kind of say, okay, that's happening in 3 weeks' time. I've got to come up with something that. So you just plan ahead. You don't have to kind of overthink it. And again, if you're not good at social media, maybe think about upskilling with the support of the Design and Crafts Council or your local enterprise offices. Again, if you're part of a bigger team, if you're part of a society or a group, do they have a collective handle that you could start and test your products with? So just think of social media. And then another S that's coming up is society. We're part of a bigger thing. And Irish society is looking to see itself reflected in the products they purchase and they love, because if they see themselves, it makes it real and relevant. So consumers want to see themselves reflected in different ages, so, if you were doing photograph, why always assume the model should be young or a certain size or a certain, whatever. So just consumers like to see themselves represented in any visuals. So different ethnicities, urban, rural lifestyles, work options. Even I go back to Diane, the basket maker, she trained as a plumber, and she was saying, when she used to turn up for work, everyone would say, like, you're a plumber, but you're a girl. So, it's just society reflects itself in visuals. And designers, makers, we're not a homogeneous group, so neither is our society. And just Irish society, back to buying local and buying Irish, we like to buy it, we've been encouraged to buy it. So it's a kind of a trend called consumer nationalism. So just be part of society. And I just put these photographs in because certainly if you're in fashion, two of the key people in fashion are older influencers like Olivia Tracy and Celia Holman Lee. So again, it's just society is so diverse, and just make sure that you include that diverse society. And then I would just put society in a smaller group, as in the craft society, because there really is a great benefit in joining with others, in learning from others, designer makers, in talking with them. And it just helps you, because while we are small, it's really great to be part of something bigger. And sort of the Made Local campaign and the Champion Green campaign really kind of helped celebrate that this year. So there's powers in numbers. And also, you know, kind of back to simple things like a graphic designer or a photographer. If you can't afford one for a full day, maybe you and 2 or 3 others can share the costs for a full day. So they're the kind of benefits from being part of a society. So they're my kind of S's. They're kind of some of the things that I came together. And I suppose, Emer, would it be kind of helpful maybe to ask Emily Jean, you know, if anything jumped out at her and what she thought might be of use or of relevance to her journey?
Exactly. I mean, I think it's fabulous that we have Emily Jean with us, because Emily, you've been through it. So,
yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on board today.
Terrific. Is there anything that Maeve has said that you'd like to pick up on?
Well, firstly, I have to say, Maeve, thank you for such an amazing insight and great presentation. And even though I'm nearly 15 years in business, I'm here scribbling down notes because there's so much I have to revisit. As you move along to different stages of your career, there's parts that you forget to check back in with. So it's been very educational for me. So thanks very much. And just to highlight, you were saying, was there anything there I would pick out maybe to talk about? And I think one of the silver linings of 2020 was the whole re-energy of the Buy Irish campaign, the focus on Irish craft makers, design, Irish fashion. And the media played a great part and an influential part for the general public to become more aware of supporting their homegrown talents. And I think going forward now into 2021, that's going to be even more embraced again. And I noticed that when there was that opening at Christmas, and I had great customers, and each one said, I'm buying everything Irish this year. You know, I'm buying all from Irish websites. I'm not spending outside the country. And I think that mindset is here to stay, thankfully. And there's some great websites now. If you don't have your own website, there's some great platforms where you can have yourself listed. The Just Buy Irish, it was introduced last year, and I noticed someone put up a little comment there on the shop in Ireland. I've yet to put a post on that, but I've been meaning to, and I've heard great reports about that as well.
Emily,
yes?
Can I ask you, sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you there, but if you were to pick out 3 challenges, first of all, and then 3 things that you were maybe apprehensive about that you thought would be challenges that weren't. Could you do that for me?
Do you mean in business in general, or like, do you mean in the last year or from when I've started?
From when you started, you know, say, looking back over the last 15 years, going in, were there 3 things that you thought, oh, jeepers, this is going to be really difficult, and it turned out that it wasn't? And then maybe 3 things that were challenging that you got over or jumped over or did whatever.
Yes. Well, I suppose the biggest thing was moving from my home to opening a premises in Galway City. So that was, you know, it's a very daunting time, wondering whether to take the leap or not. And I'd researched the market, and I had done Showcase for a couple of years. So I knew there was a buyer there. I was selling wholesale, and I was doing some wedding fairs, and that was introducing me to the general public. And I was working from home, so I would take appointments, and mainly brides, when they're getting something custom made, they don't mind coming to a house. You know, I had the room done up nicely. So I had a steady start. And then I suppose it took the initial kind of fear out of taking that leap. So when I opened in town, I never looked back, really. It was great. And I think you have to take, when you're self-employed, just taking risks comes with the territory. So it proved very successful. And from there, from after 10 years, then I moved to Moycullen, and I felt very safe with that decision. And then another challenge was setting up the website. That was a big thing for me. I set it up about probably 6 years ago, but it was very static. It wasn't e-commerce, and it was a huge learning curve. And I have to say, I've made plenty of mistakes with that. But for me, I just call them learning curves. You have to go through those to learn. And the e-commerce, when I set that up, that was just the making of the site. So I set that up about 2 years ago, and then last year I really reaped the rewards from that when I launched the turbans.
And was there anything that you were worried about that wasn't a worry at all? Is there anything that we all do this? You know, we all worry about things that don't turn into an issue. Was there anything like that? I mean, did you have any apprehension?
Well, yes. I mean, worried about making sales, to be quite honest. You know, it's always a concern. And the funny thing is, when you're a craftsperson and you're running your own business, you're so emotionally involved, because it's you're putting out there. It's not just your work. It's all of you. You're your brand. You're the maker, the seller, and you're the face of it all. So I think, you know, you're always kind of concerned about how the media, the public see you in one sense. But I think if you're honest with what you're doing and what you're making and what you're selling, you'll always win in the end.
That's very good advice. Maeve, I have a request in here. I don't want to interrupt you, and we'll come back to what you're saying, just so that I remember this, to discuss in more detail your initial slide. Okay, your initial slide 1, slide 2.
Which was
if we to go back to that a little bit. And I'd also like to reiterate someone saying, you know, the shopinireland.ie is very good. It is very good. So I think for everyone that's well worth checking out. So I don't know, Maeve, you'd probably be able to discuss that without going back, or do you want to go back?
No. I mean, the slide 1, the point number 1 that I was talking about was about perfecting your craft product. You know, making sure that you are as good as you can be, without being, you know, as good as you can be in the eyes of the consumer, not in your eyes. Because similar enough to what Emily Jean said there, when you're self-employed and when you're a designer or maker or artist, we're so hard on ourselves. Like we just think lots of things we do are never good enough, when in the eyes of the consumer, they're amazing. But when you make something, part of your soul in it, and it's so hurtful if someone doesn't buy it or like it, or, you know, doesn't embrace it. But if you're running a business like a creative startup, you have to say, okay, what's my skill set? And then how can I translate that to a viable product that people will buy? And, you know, not critiquing you, Emily Jean, you kill me for critiquing you, but you obviously have a design, fashion, textile skill set. And from talking to you earlier today and talking to you now, you've been able to move and pivot and change and adapt, because at the core, you know what you're good at. You're good at fashion, you're good at design, you're good at making. And so you've had to, reluctantly, I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth now, but you've had to react to the fact that there's no weddings in 2020. So what else can I do? And I would always see that with, you know, with some other designers, creators and makers. They would say, okay, I'm really good at fragrances. So I'm, but nobody's buying my perfume. So, you know, I'm going to diversifying to soaps and or candles. So it's just kind of knowing what you're good at and then seeing how can I make an income from this. You know, to do something I love, you're not doing it just because you love it. You're doing it because you have to pay the bills. Um, so that's the thing. It's like know what you're good at, know what your design signature is, know what you can transfer into other things. And that does take time because loads of people start out saying, oh, I'm a ceramicist. And then they go to showcase or they go to gifted in the RDS, and everyone loved the scarf that they had almost as a prop. So that's what I kind of meant about your craft product is have a good think about what is it that you do and how you can perfect it and how you can sell it. I don't know if that answers the question, Emer, for your.
I think it does. Just what I'd also like to say is today is a broad introduction. The Design Crafts Council, in conjunction with the Leos, will be running a suite of building craft enterprise programs during this year. And we're also running an e-commerce bootcamp. So those will be in the opportunities in the next few weeks, and everyone should watch out for those, particularly if they'd like to take the topic to a greater depth. I'm going to challenge Emily Jean, and you're probably going to say, I wish I hadn't committed to coming along today. Here's one for you, because I thought you'd give me this as the answer, but you can tell me to go away and that this doesn't happen at all. Can you give me some comments on creditors? People who have commissioned work from you that you've had difficulty getting payments out of. A couple of hints on that.
Yeah.
Another one, I mean, that I'd like to tease out is that little conversion of moving the lead to a sale. You know, that jump. Those two.
All right.
Can you give me a couple of words on those? That'd be great.
Yes, of course. So the first one, I think a lot of craft workers would be when they're starting out is you're very reluctant to ask for money. It's just it comes with the territory, but from the get-go, I think you have to get rid of that mentality because you'll end up being stung and burnt along the way. So how I operate is with my wholesalers and my commercial retail is there's always an upfront deposit. It's non-negotiable. So that depends. It can depend on the quantity of the order of the deposit. I usually say, if it's a wholesaler, I usually say 50% upfront of the order and then payment on delivery. Final payment on delivery. Now, if it's somebody that you've built up a good rapport with and they're a customer for a number of years, maybe a year or 2 years, I might give credit on the second one. So, but always on the order 50%. And I haven't had any problems. I'd have very good payment terms with my wholesalers. Then with commercial retail, again, it's 50% deposit, and actually a lot of the time they might pay in full, or they might pay a little bit more than 50%, and then payment, the final payment is on collection before they leave the shop. So they're 100% happy that everything's done to their satisfaction.
Okay, and that piece about the turning interest on a lead through to a sale. Could you give us any hints on how you do that?
Well, I suppose this year has been quite different because it's been a lot of digital. So it's all been online. And I think that's the way it's going to be going forward. So how I work that is through, I get a lot of Instagram questions and a lot of Instagram messages. I saw this picture on your website, wondering if you do it in different colors, wedding coming up, and I'd be interested. So I get a conversation going then. Now it can be time consuming, but that's the nature of it. And when there's a good conversation flow, I will always prompt, I'll come back. So maybe let a day or two pass, give back the images, and you mightn't hear from them. and I'd always follow up. I think that's very important. And I mean, you're not going to torment the person, obviously, but you'll get a good feel from them if they're interested or not. Now, they may, I mean, if it comes to the nitty gritty, and they may come back to you and they say, you know, that's a little bit steep. Say if it's a wedding piece, some of those pieces can be 300 or 400 euros for a hat. And likewise with other craftspeople, they might be doing nice pottery, the market is very competitive. So they could come back and say, well, look, you know, I've actually gone to somebody else and I can get it at such and such price. Now, I'm not one to bargain, and your work is your work. But if it means closing a sale by taking 10% off, you might consider it. You know, you might consider it, but you wouldn't go too much lower than that, especially if it's a first time, you know, person is their first time buying from you. If they're a repeat customer, you look after them. But I usually say I add value rather than discounts. So I might say, well, look, I actually have a lovely pair of earrings that will go perfectly with that hat. How about I put those in the box for you as well? And it can kind of close a sale for you in that way.
That's a lovely approach, and very admirable. By the way, I wouldn't be an advocate of discounting or being pushed into discounting. I think it's something that because your work, you know, has such added value, and there's so much of yourself in it, that you don't have a huge margin to play around with anyway.
And you're not in the bargaining trade, no, you know, it's very different. Yeah,
you're definitely not. And I wouldn't be an advocate of it, but I think it's something that everybody just has to have at the back of their minds. And Maeve, do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah. Yes, Emer. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Yes. You know, the sector we're in is not hard sell. You know, it's not a commodity. But I also think we've always got to remember is that by accident, the Irish consumers, sometimes they just automatically say, even when they think it's a great price, they automatically say, is that your best price? And you know, they shouldn't, they don't mean to do it, but I suppose we in the sector have got to say, yeah, that's my best price. And they won't be offended, you know, they won't be offended. But some people just can't help themselves. You know, they'll drive 40 miles for €4 off something. Well, off you go, drive the 40 miles. So just, while they don't even think, like if I'm working in another sector, be it food or law or technology, I don't know the difference that asking someone for €20 off or a 10% off would be. And some consumers just automatically ask for it, but they don't always think they're going to get it. So we just have to train ourselves to say, yeah, that's my best price. Another way of kind of dealing with, gosh, how do I deal with a wholesaler or a retailer, is to have your terms and conditions written down, and maybe emailed to them during the conversation or after the first, you know, lead or question, so that they have seen it. So it's up to them to say, oh, I see the way you insist on 100% before shipment or 50%. So it's up to them to ask for the change as opposed to you explaining the change. So sometimes having it in writing and sending it off first can kind of help you with communication, you know. So that's something.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Maeve. We had a session on terms of trading, and if anyone wants to refer back to that, and I'll plug it again, in the Building Craft Enterprise Programme, we'll be dealing with that in an awful lot of depth, which is really good. Now, we have another question for Emily here. Can you ask Emily about how to best work with suppliers for a price discount on supply? So we're now integrating backwards and integrating forwards. So we've had the customer asking for discounts. So how do you go about your discounts?
For me, I think one of the main ways is just ordering in volume. And I know that can be difficult when you don't know what's going to sell. But for components and say, and fabric and different things, like in my industry, it would be that maybe fabric and findings for jewellery. I think if you offer to buy in bulk a certain product, certain thing, well, I found that suppliers will give me a discount then.
Very good, very succinct answer. I have a reference back to someone would like more detail. That's a third person would like more detail on your second piece, which is that Start and Stay Digital, Maeve, that we'd be looking at?
Let me just see.
Yeah.
The second piece. Let me just have a look at it here, Emer. Start and Stay Digital. The first one was about the craft. The second was Start and Stay Digital.
Yeah. Start and Stay Digital stuck in my mind because I like the kind of all the S's that you were iterating. So with the Start and Stay Digital, I'm going to ask Maeve to say a little bit, but before I do that, I'm going to do another plug. We are running an e-commerce bootcamp in conjunction with the local enterprise offices nationally, and that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. So watch out for it, because everyone at every stage is being considered. What we're saying at the moment is one of the advantages of starting off at the moment is the fact that you can start digital from the very beginning. We can all pretend, or all of you starting today can pretend to be Gen Zs, okay? Whereas those, even Emily Jean included, she's saying, you know, and it was 6 years ago. She's recently addressed in more depth the e-commerce piece. So it's a bit more like doing up an old house with respect, Emily Jean, then you're able to start completely a new, fresh site with your underfloor heating and everything fit for purpose, right? So that's the bit that I'd be saying about the Stay Digital. Watch out for the e-commerce bootcamp, but I'd like to revert back to Maeve now for your initial thoughts on this.
Yes, Emer. It basically, starting and staying digital means that the consumer and the public can see your product at any time. I can see product at any time on sale in France or Germany or the USA. So that is kind of what you're competing with. But you have an extra strength when on digital, I can see that you're handmade with love in, you know, in the Burn, or you're designed, you know, in the backdrop of, you know, Mount Errigal. So even in the very beginning, you know, if you haven't got your own website or your own social media handles, if you're on Etsy, just if you're going to take a beautiful photograph, just say this photograph is going to travel. So that if somebody in Dublin or someone in Cork emails and rings and asks for a picture, I can send this to them and it reflects what I'm doing. And even if you're not selling direct, if you make a decision this year or next year that you want to sell into retailers only, it's very common. Retailers will tell you this, that, you know, gift retailers and craft retailers, that consumers can walk into their shops, pull out their phone and check where you're from their phone. They'll just Google Maeve Ring Ceramics and they'll say, okay, she's based in Kinsale, she does X, Y, and Z. And then, like, I had a shopkeeper in Skibbereen tell me that consumers came into her shop, looked at a textile range, an Irish textile range. She had 4 colours, the website had 10 colours, and they proceeded to say, we want this colour. And she had to decide whether she would get it from the maker or the consumer would buy it direct from the maker. So my point is no matter where you are, you're going to have a digital footprint. So you might as well start thinking about it now. And to impress a retailer, you're going to have a beautiful photograph. To impress a journalist, you have to have a beautiful photograph. And to impress a consumer, you have to have a beautiful photograph. So just start thinking like that, you know, we've been pushed into technology. You know, we've achieved more in the last year than we probably would have in the next 7-8 years. So just unfortunately embrace it or upskill yourself on it and start and stay with digital just going forward, because hopefully we'll all have vaccines and we'll be back to shopping the way we used to. but we have got so comfortable looking at our phone, and even if we're not buying via your direct website, we're buying via another retailer's website. So having a lovely story on your inspiration and having a lovely image of what you sell is key. It's your shop window.
Maeve, that's absolutely excellent advice, because the thinking and the research, recent research, is that retail, bricks and mortar retail, is going to become the experience rather than the point of sale. So people will be reiterating what they've already researched, and that will be increasingly so. So start and stay with the digital. We're here to support you on that. And the Leos have been fabulous and continue to be with their trading online vouchers. So they're there and they are supportive. And we'll have that e-commerce academy boot camp, which will be of a great help. And I have a question here, which someone thought it may not be the right platform, but it is, because we're looking at starting off. And they're asking about Design and Crafts Council membership. For those of you who aren't members, I think you should apply, you should register and apply with us. There are various types of membership. And if you're seriously thinking about setting up your business, you should go for the semi-professional, professional category. And this person has asked me to ask Emily Jean to take them through that process of how you joined and how it helped you. And the answer is yes, it did help you, but I'm not putting words in your mouth. So.
Of course, of course. Gosh, I'm a member so long now, I can't even remember the process. I mean, I must have joined when I first started out, really. And I reaped the benefits, I have to say. The Design and Crafts Council have been so supportive in many ways. Where I found the help most beneficial, I think, has been more recently with mentoring. There's when you're on your own and you're running your own business, you've known to bounce ideas off on a professional level. Sure, you can say to friends and family, what do you think of this? The constructive criticism you need is going to come from a professional. And I found that the mentors with the Crafts Council have been invaluable. They've steered me in the right direction. They've given me guidance and tips, and just making me go from pillar to post, really, and helping me get to the end goal. And also just being part of a craft group in general. And I find that great, because a craft person's job can be quite solitary. You're in your own workshop day in, day out, and having the crafts person's support to bounce ideas off and just chat to and have a rant. I've built up great friendships through the Design and Crafts Council, and I meet people at show. Even though I don't exhibit at Showcase the last few years, I would always go up, and I'm always meeting people, and a lot of the mentors and people who work there as well. And then I suppose the campaigns, the Made Local, and that's just it was phenomenal for me last year with all the content I was able to use on social media. And the Design and Crafts Council have built up such a strong brand with the media, and they're experts in their field. So to be associated with that gives more strength and validity to your own brand.
That's a lovely answer, more comprehensive than even I could have done. So, listen, the main thing for me of people being registered with us is that you get notification of initiatives that are available, and you can choose what's for you, and you can share the good stuff and you can share the bad stuff, as you said. Like if you're stuck on something, you can contact another registered craftsperson and have a constructive whining discussion on is this happening you, it's happening me. And I think that's really positive, because all of you're in all parts of Ireland, and part of your creativity is it's isolated, and and there's no charge at the moment. So if there's no charge, I would just think apply. Now, it can take a little while. The registration process is running on about 6 to 8 week process at the moment, but it's worth it. I think it's definitely worth it. Somebody just asked me, like, that's it. It takes about 8 weeks, depending. The panel meets about every 8 weeks. It's not religiously 8 weeks, but it's as applications accumulate. But it averages out about once every 8 weeks. So I'm just going to scan through here to see if there are any more questions. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe you anything to add?
Yes, just to say, with the Design and Crafts Council, what a lot of my friends and colleagues would find really helpful is the opportunities. Sometimes you will find a show happening, nationally or locally that you haven't considered. You're just too busy. So it is a great place to find out what's happening in other parts of the country, what shows other people are going to. You have call outs. You also have, this is down the line, but you have your export markets, if you want to do a show overseas. So it is the umbrella body in Ireland for our sector. So I would just say sign up, but everything is there on the website, and back to what you spoke about there about pricing. There was a really good pricing seminar given by jeweler Tracy Gilbert during the
Yes.
summer. There's really good. I was speaking with a soap maker yesterday, and she'd never heard of the Design and Crafts Council. Now, that's just because previous to going into soap making, she had never been exposed to this sector. But she nearly she got overwhelmed. There was so much information. So I would say just go through the webinars, go through the opportunities, because it almost answers all these questions. It takes time, it's desk research, but there's lots of information there.
Good, thank you, Maeve. I'm just going to run through a few questions here. Emily Jean, possibly, or maybe Maeve, through clients that you've been working with. And they're wondering if anyone could help with packaging. Is there an Irish company that does orders smaller than 500 pieces that either of you have come across?
Again, kind of like what we spoke about suppliers, it's a case by case, order. How long is a piece of string? At the outset, O'Toole's and Limerick are quite popular. O'Toole's packaging, Barry packaging are popular as well. But it depends what kind of boxes you needed. Do they need to be embossed? Packaging is a key query with all in the sector. It's just most of our packaging, has to come in from overseas. So there's a long lead in time, and there is minimum quantity orders. But have a look at, if it's jewelry in particular, have a look at IJL. That's the International Jewelry Show London. They had a virtual show, but jewelry packaging companies are listed in the exhibitors. So maybe that's one place of sourcing them. But they tend to be, unfortunately, international. There really isn't the volume here in Ireland to have a dedicated kind of bespoke packaging service.
Okay, there's someone's actually picking up on your point, Maeve, by saying, that she hasn't found less than 500, but you can get unbranded. And in the UK, Package Help does very small quantities. That could bring on its own.
Will I add to that, Emer, as well? Yeah, so I got the branded packaging, and I'm just actually going to show you an example as well. So again, I had to order over the 500 for my branded, but for Christmas, for sending smaller gifts, I could order less, so just even 100. And what I did was, you can see there, I just have the little sticker label. You can see that on it. So if you buy the nice stickers, and that's the branded box there then. But the stickers I got from Snap, and they're really good quality, and they can look very effective. They bring your brand across and rather than sending them out with just a plain you know, plain top, just to have your name there visually is always a help.
That's really good. God, I'll keep you here all night. Okay, Emily Jean, here's another one for you. Okay, how does Emily Jean do all the tasks?
Yeah, last year in particular, there was, I suppose it was my most demanding year in many respects, but it is time consuming. Social media can be very time consuming. I tend to do up drafts so that they're good to go. So when I do have some windows in the evening or first thing in the morning, I'll do up some drafts and then schedule them to go out at certain times during the day or over the week. Now, I do have to say that the local college here, the GMIT, approached me about taking on a student for work experience. So I have a girl signed up now, and that's going to take some of the load off. She's going to cover some social media for me. Now, it'll still be very hands-on because I'm very protective about how things are written, hashtags that I use, people I tag, all of that kind of thing. So I'll be vetting everything. But I can see that would be a big help for me this year to have someone on that side of things.
Okay, that's great to get those insights. We've got a quick bit of advice adding on the packaging, that there's a firm, boxdisplays.co.uk. They're based in Limavady in Northern Ireland, and it's good, and you can order small quantities. Now, anybody who has questions about starting their own business and making the most of it, please email me over the coming days. I want to go back to one that came up earlier, and I didn't have time to answer it or field it. And that was one that asked, is there anywhere that they can have a forum for craftspeople to have their product assessed by a panel, just to get information and advice and advice on it. So the way I looked at that, and you must have been reading my mind, was that in March, I'm starting off with a focus group. This is exactly what this person wants. And I didn't pay them to put in this question, by the way, that how can they access focus groups to get feedback on their products? So I'm breaking our webinars up from March forward into eight sessions on various topics. And on each of those 8 sessions, I'm going to have a focus group, right? So the first one is going to be in March. I'm going to do a focus group, and I'm going to look at homewares. Now, please, if you're in apparel, don't panic. That's coming down the line. So the guinea pigs are going to be the homewares, and I'm going to have experts in, and then I'm going to have breakout groups where people kind of, small group and possibly individual discussions on their products and private sessions. So I think that's something to watch with interest. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope that answers your question, that is coming in the not too distant future. There's another question that someone asked me about artists who aren't living in Ireland, and I'd be delighted to answer that question in my own time. So if you can just put an email to me, I'll get back to you, kind of offline. So with that, hold on, I'm just going to scan here. I'm going to ask, while I'm scanning for the last few questions, I'm going to ask Maeve and then Emily whether they have anything to add to this.
No, I don't. Only to say, it's constantly evolving. You change and you adapt and you reassess, and you know that you learn that from meeting with consumers and meeting with fellow designers and makers, and like Emily, Jean, sharing ideas. That's how a lot of us learn, just seeing what other people are doing.
Exactly. Emily, Jean, have you anything to add?
Yes, Emer, I'd just like to say that to all the crafts, I know this is for people starting out, that I wish them the very best of luck, and that I think now more than ever, it's a very positive time to start a crafts business because of the Irish mindset. It's all about buying Irish and supporting local. It's all back in the community now. People want to support their community. So I think now's as good a time as any.
Brilliant. Those are great words of encouragement as we wind it up for today. I've got some bit of advice here on someone's giving information on stickerme.ie. Does a lot of stickers for small food producers and might be a good place to look for product stickers. It's a small family business, but works with a lot of artists in the rest of its design work. So that's an interesting one. I'd like to make a plug that now that we started looking at small business, we've got product development piece next week, which I think would be well worth tuning into. And I'm going to do a big plug, and I said I'd pay people to attend, but I'm hoping that people would attend just themselves, that we're going to concentrate on Brexit then as we come in from the 11th of February. So with that, I'll just do one more little scan, then people have other things to be doing today. So I just kind of check that I've got everything covered. And I'd like to really thank everybody for giving their time, and Maeve for putting in the effort for today's presentation. And also Emily Jean, you were a star, you know, on coming and giving of your own free advice. Someone here's having a problem in logging into the DCCI. Anybody's got specific problems, just send me an assertive email after this session. I can't thank either of the two of you enough for being here. You're getting great praise. Thanks for a very supportive session. People are saying it's wonderfully presented, wonderful content. Just before we came on air, we were having a bit of sound problems with Maeve, and you know, I was just saying that, you know, Maeve lives in one of the most beautiful places in Ireland, but I suppose beauty doesn't come with good internet. So with that, thank you both very much. Thanks everyone for joining us, and the best of luck with everything and your new craft ventures. Thank you. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you.